In this video, we will discuss grouping by operation, which is a very powerful operation provided in the Java Stream API. And say, for example, we have this movie list and we want to collect movies by their ratings. So if we use grouping by operation of the Stream API, it makes it easy to perform such operation, because consider you are writing this code in a traditional Java way. So you'll have to initialize a map, then you will iterate the collection, then we'll see if the key exists in the map. If not, then initialize it. If yes, then add the entry to the existing entry. So that kind of thing. But let's see how can we do that using grouping by operation. To do that, we pass a grouping by collector to the collect method. So collectors.groupingBy. Now grouping by takes a function. That function returns a value, and that value will be used to group the output, to group the collection. So because we want to do the grouping on the rating, we will return the rating from that collection. We can write a lambda expression or a method reference. So we say movie : rating. That's it. It says that we are trying to call the grouping by method and we are trying to group by their rating. Now it returns a map. Movie, list of movie. So as expected, grouping by will return a map. The key of that map will be the rating of movies, and the value of that map will be the collection of movies, because a rating can have more than, so let me rephrase, because more than one movies or multiple movies can have the same rating. And because we are grouping the collection, we are grouping the movies, so the value of the map will be again a collection of movies. By default, this collection is list, so that's why we see the value type of the map as list of movie. By default, the grouping by operation groups them in a list. So let's print it. And if we run the code, we should see the movies grouped by their rating. So we see in the resulting hash map on the key 9, there is a single entry, this one. But for the key 10, we have two movies, movie number 1 and movie number 2. So that's how we use grouping by. Now we said that by default, the grouping by collector collects the entities to a list. What if we want to change this? Maybe we still want the map, because that's what grouping by will return. But instead of list, we want to have a set of movies grouped by their IDs or by their rating. So that is simple thing to do. That we can simply copy it and change it accordingly. So this time we want a set. So we use set. Then we name it, for example, set by rating. Now grouping by has another variant which accepts another collector. So we pass another collector to the grouping by method and we say that we want to collect it to a set. That's it. So we are passing the function to get the value that will be used to group by, and then the another parameter, another collector that says collect all these values to a set instead of list. And if we run this code, we won't see any difference in the output. But the thing is, this one is a list and this one is a set. So we see the same output. For rating 10, there are 2 entries. Okay. Now let's say that we want to perform the group by the rating, but we are not interested in the whole movie object. We simply want the title of the movie. How can we do that? Again, this is pretty simple with the grouping by operation. We start with the collection, then we call the stream method, then we collect them. We use a collector, so collectors dot grouping by the classifier, which is movie dot rating. Then we pass a collector, and this time we pass the mapping collector. So we say collectors dot mapping. We have already seen a demo on the mapping collector, so if you're not aware, please watch that video. So collectors dot mapping, this again takes a function. So if you see the signature, this takes a function, mapper function, and then the downstream collector. So first we will pass the mapper function, that simply is movie colon colon title and method reference. And the second parameter is the collector, the downstream collectors, and we are going to collect all the titles to a set. So we will say to set, and this time titles by rating, let's name the variable. And this time, instead of list of movie or set of movie, we have a set of string, because this downstream collector will collect the values to a set, and this method reference is basically the value that we are collecting, which is string. So we have the set of string. Now if we print it and run the code, we see the movie titles grouped by their rating. So rating 9 has a single movie matrix, and for rating 10 we have two movies, LOTR and The Dark Knight. So instead of the movie object, we are now grouping the title. Okay, there is just one more variant of grouping by, and before we cover that, let's just say that what kind of map this grouping by returns. So if we go to the grouping by documentation, we see that a collector implementing the group by operation, and it returns a map. This is the default version of grouping by operation. But we don't have any control on the type of this map. So if we print, let's say, the class name of all these maps, then we should see the hash map. So we see the hash map. We did not provide the hash map, but it was done automatically by the grouping by collector. Now, if the requirement is to use a different kind of map, then there is a way to pass that information to the grouping by method. So let's try to use that. Movies. Let me copy. Collectors dot grouping by, and this time we are going to use this variant of the grouping by. So we see it accepts a classifier, which is a function. So first we provide the classifier, which is movie colon colon rating. Okay, then it accepts a supplier. What supplier will do, it will supply the type of hash map or the type of map that we want to use instead of the plain or the default map. So let's say instead of the hash map, we are trying to collect the values to the linked hash map or tree map. In that case, what we can do, we will implement this supplier function basically. And using method reference, we can say something like this: linked hash map colon colon new. It means that we want to collect the output to a map, but this time the linked hash map. All right. And the third parameter is basically the downstream collector. So we say that values will be collected to the set. So the return type more or less remains the same. Linked hash map by rating. So the return type more or less remains the same because it is still a set of movie, because that's what we used as the downstream collector, and it is still a map. The underlying map, however, is the linked hash map. That is, so there are two ways. Either we do something like this, because that's what we passed as a supplier. Okay, so linked hash map, or we can use the super type, but if we want to check the type of this hash map, so we can do the similar thing. And if we run this code, we see for the last example, this time we have the linked hash map. So that's how we override the default behavior. So we saw 4 examples of grouping by. The first one was simply to use the classifier. The second was to use the classifier along with the downstream collector. Then we saw how can we pass custom comparators, custom collectors to do some other things, for example, mapping in this case. And then we saw how to override the default map that is returned by the grouping by collector. All right. So that's it on the grouping by operation. See you in the next video. Thank you.